just so we're clear, that New York Times opinion piece about body positivity, waste of time.
Like, you're not even with what's actually going on in the current movement. So, like, why are we talking to you?
This message is for Gabriella Lascano and the New York Times. You're gonna want to sit down for this.
Oh, I hope y'all are ready for some nonsense today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam and I make weekly videos dissecting internet nonsense just like that. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. You know what you're in for, and honestly, I'm just glad to have you back here with me again this week for another video. If you are new here and this is the first time you are seeing my face, also welcome. I'm glad you decided to join us today, and I hope that if any of you out there like what you see, that you'll consider liking this video because that helps me reach more people just like you. But also, I hope each and every one of you will consider subscribing because that lets me know that you want to join us over here in our little corner of the internet. And well, friends, we would love to have you. Today, we are going to be talking about none other than Gabriella Lascano. And if you don't remember Gabriella, allow me to do a little background for you. It was about 3 years ago that we came here together on the channel to talk about a video that she made because my, oh my, did she stir up the nonsense 3 years ago. And if you don't recall, she had apparently woken up one day. She's a plus-size fashion influencer. She decided to put on her best face, a lovely brown turtleneck, and she just recorded exactly how she was feeling. She served it to the body positivity, fat acceptance, and fat liberation movements online about not only their toxicity problem, but also the fact that their rhetoric was harming people. You can't tell people that obesity doesn't cause health issues when it does. That was her message. It was a very simple one. And if you remember at the time, I mean, she kicked the hornet's nest. The backlash was crazy. And now, just a couple of weeks ago, 3 years later, Gabriella is back, donning a similarly colored turtleneck to once again serve it up on a hot platter to the body positivity, fat liberation, and fat acceptance movements here on the internet. Only this time, she went into more detail about her story and what made her want to make that original video. If you haven't seen it, the New York Times is actually who Gabriella worked with to publish this new piece. It was not just done on her own platform the way that it was 3 years ago. This time, she did both a video and text essay about the issues with the body positivity movement as it exists online. And her main argument remains the same. Body positivity was a well-intentioned movement that has over time, and with the help of the internet, I might add, has become self-destructive with potentially fatal consequences for those who follow it. Gabriella goes into depth about the loss of her friend and her community, talking about her friend Jamie Lopez, who is well known for building the first plus-size salon in Las Vegas with salon chairs that could hold up to 800 pounds. Gabriella also mentions watching other plus-size creators like Sick and Tired of Waiting, who ultimately ended up passing away also due to complications from obesity. Both died at very young ages, with Jamie passing away at age 37 and Brittany, who we talked about here on the channel, unfortunately passing away at age 28. And the New York Times did a great job trying to capture the full essence of this story and what Gabriella was trying to say this entire time. They even flashed back to her original video from 3 years ago, where her message and her argument were pretty simple.
It's not fatphobic to care about your health.
And while they did end up covering the fact that Gabriella did get a lot of backlash, I feel like there could have been more done here, in my opinion. I know they're trying to keep it succinct, but the backlash was so swift and so vicious from the women in this movement that Gabriella ended up having to take that original video down pretty quickly. And I remember at the time feeling pretty conflicted about that because on one hand, I completely understand how it feels to be dogpiled, and it's not great. It can really affect your mental health, even though it's possible for you to log off and not look at those things. It's overwhelming to know that there are so many people in that moment that just hate your guts. So I completely understood why she would take it down for her own sanity and her own mental health. But on the other hand, all of the videos that were coming out in an attempt to silence her and tell her she was wrong, they were just absolutely off the wall, wild takes, and none of them got to the heart of the argument she was actually making, which is that they were attacking people for losing weight and telling people that obesity had no connection to health problems. And that was happening while plus-size influencers were passing away. And they weren't talking about them. They weren't memorializing them. We have talked about this over and over again on the channel. They do not talk about the people who pass away. They just don't. They would rather just pretend it's not happening to continue to live in the headspace that they live in. And Gabriella was one of the first to be able to really challenge that. And they just did not have good responses. Take, for example, this creator who responded to Gabriella's original video, where somewhere in there she had said, not only was it her experience that she gained weight while in this movement without realizing it, she had watched others around her also continue to gain weight while in this movement.
I see a lot of fat girls who gain a lot of weight from being caught up in this movement.
Girl, I can say with 100% certainty that not a single person has been like, you know what? I want to gain weight because people on the internet make it seem super fun to be fat.
It's important to flag that in that original video, Gabriella did not anywhere say, yeah, it's a requirement if you're part of this movement that you have to be okay gaining weight and you should talk about it openly. Like, that's never going to happen because, of course, no one wants to gain weight. And maybe her use of the words trendy, maybe that threw them off and they decided to focus on that instead of the actual argument itself, which is a critical thinking and a media literacy problem. But she never actually said those words. Never. What she was saying is when you're a part of this movement and when you build your audience this way, she learned and she watched others learn in real time that it was not acceptable to lose weight because you would be canceled if you did so. And Gabriella is not the only person to say this, because Rosie Beam, when she left the movement, made an Instagram post talking about the first time she had hung out with other plus-size influencers, probably at a brand party. And if you'll recall, in that post, she talked about how one of them, her hero, was actually pretty rude and made an unsolicited comment about her facial acne and how she should clear that up. And then she said, while I was at those parties, these groups of plus-size women would gossip about and try to clock other influencers who might be losing weight, even if they weren't talking about it publicly. So upon remembering all of that and seeing those rebuttals and how ridiculous they were the first time Gabriella did this, well, she's back. And again, she's on an even larger platform, right? Because now she's with the New York Times and not just on her own platform. And as you can imagine, she's essentially once again kicked the hornet's nest. And the rebuttals, well, they're really something else, as you're gonna see. And those are what I really want to focus on today. And the first one that I saw was actually from Samira.
Just so we're clear, that New York Times opinion piece about body positivity, waste of time. Lazy research, a very poor, unnuanced take. Yeah, if you want to talk about body positivity, don't talk about it with somebody fatphobic who doesn't even understand what body positivity is. And furthermore, if you're going to include research, make sure you have both the proper analytical and critical thinking skills to discuss said research.
And so seeing this piqued my interest because, once again, it's a response to something that's not actually a response. And I'm starting to pick up on the fact that this is kind of Samira's MO, is to make a response where she says, yeah, it was unnuanced and silly and that person was fatphobic, but she never actually proves that or brings counter research or even makes a counter argument. It's always this. And as I watched it, I was like, how is Gabriella's take unnuanced? Did you watch the video, Samira? Like, that was my kind of immediate reaction because I had watched the video and it was nuanced. She talked about learning about the discrimination of plus-size people by the medical field, how plus-size people were being paid less, and that was called fatphobia. She talked about how it led her into this movement, but then also how this movement became more radicalized on the internet. And then she still said at the end, I think that we don't need to have the pendulum swing all the way to the other side. I don't think people need to go looking for Skinny Talk, who is also giving terrible advice that's bad for health. I don't think we need to go back to the early 2000s diet culture or heroin chic. I think people need to be focused on what is healthy for them and their body. How is that not nuanced? And also, what's with the finger quotes in this? Because they're everywhere, and she keeps doing it for body positivity and also fatphobic. It's a lot. And it honestly made me think of that episode of Friends where Joey's like, yeah, I don't know how to use those.
Can I just stop you right there for a second? When people do this, I don't really know what that means.
And then, of course, our Harvard grad decided, basically, what I'm going to do is just say that this is a waste of my time because Gabriella and the New York Times reporter are basically too stupid to think critically about the research they've included, and also they don't have the proper analytical skills to talk about it. I, as a Harvard grad, can say that, right? And I struggled with that because it's such an old school way of thinking. And as a millennial who went through all of this, right? Like, you've got to go to a big school. If you don't go to college, you won't be successful. Listen, I went to college, so we both learned to think critically. We both learned to analyze. The name of the school makes no difference. It's about the way you apply yourself and how intelligent you are and how capable you are of being curious and asking questions and following through. And what's so fascinating to me is that Samira 100% has no problem leaning into that Harvard degree to call people idiots. But we have yet to see her lean into that Harvard degree to prove a counter argument, to show that they cherry-picked that data and that they were reading it incorrectly. If she's so smart and they are so stupid, it should have been easy for her to disprove them.
What, like it's hard?
Also, I'm not sure if Samira did this or if this is something TikTok has added, but there is a big, long AI-generated caption on this video that basically talks about the way that media can shape narratives about body size and could end up perpetuating further fat phobia. The thing is, we know that AI is not the smartest tool. It can only give us what we want, and it also feeds into our biases. These are things that are known about AI. But also, once again, did she watch the video? Did she listen to a word of it? Did she read the article that they wrote? Because honestly, based on this video and this caption, all signs are pointing to no. And Samira wasn't the only one to have an off-the-wall kind of take, right? Actually, I would argue that Samira opened the floodgates because once she said, Gabriella doesn't even know what the body positive movement is about, that opened the floodgates for others.
Like, you're not even with what's actually going on in the current movement. So, why are we talking to you?
So, first things first, I think we need to talk about the fact that we really do not align ourselves with body positivity anymore. People very rarely talk about body positivity if they're actually in a space where they understand those kind of conversations, right?
Again, do you think they realize they are feeding into her point exactly? About how toxic this movement has become and how radicalized it has become, especially with the help of the internet. They are feeding into that directly with these responses. Gabriella did have an understanding of the very early body positivity movement because, as she explained, she was on the internet when it took off. She was part of that, getting covers on magazines, watching people like Tess Holliday and Ashley Graham also take off and get covers of even bigger magazines. She was there. She experienced it firsthand. And maybe this is where the issue really lies, and I'm really trying to get inside their brains here because it's so clear that they're not getting it and it's not resonating. And I think the more I watched their responses, the more I realized there's some key perspective and nuance missing here. Because what you'll hear from both of those creators and also Samira is that the body positivity movement was co-opted by thin and mid-sized women. And to them, that's the reason that body positivity no longer exists, and they've had to lean more into fat acceptance and fat liberation and body neutrality. What they don't see and what they refuse to talk about is the fact that when people on the internet started to feel like this movement was under threat, potentially by those fitness influencers or those thin women or those corporations, they became more radicalized in their responses and in their approach. They began attacking other women based on their appearance and nothing else. They told other women they were not part of the movement because they weren't fat enough. They made a size chart with the word death fats in it to build a hierarchy of who was worthy and who was not. Early body positivity, as much as it was co-opted by thin people and corporations and athletes, was also co-opted by the fat acceptance and fat liberation movements, and it was really being pulled in two entirely separate directions, neither of which were likely good for it. But the problem is the majority of plus-size people and plus-size creators, they had to start falling in line with the more radicalized part, the fat acceptance and the fat liberation part, again, for fear of being canceled, for fear of not being fat enough to talk about the issues. That is the part of this story that I can't tell if they refuse to see it or if they do see it and they're constantly just conveniently leaving it out because it's important. And that is the point that Gabriella has been trying to drive home for the last 3 years. Nothing Gabriella has said then or now has been untrue. Fat activists have 100% come online under the guise of body positivity and said things like,
I just don't like skinny people. I'll just be honest with you, I don't. I don't like being around them. I don't like looking at them. I don't want to even look at them. I'd rather live in a world where they didn't exist.
So is any other like fat person feeling the same way, that you like genuinely do not give any about the lives of people who are fucking fatphobic and dehumanize us? Like, I don't even care to try and educate people anymore. Like, they can all disappear.
People are judging your body every single moment of every single day.
They call people who've lost weight self-hating fat people who have internalized fat phobia. It's an argument they're still making, even in their rebuttals, because you heard Samira say.
Yeah, if you want to talk about body positivity, don't talk about it with somebody fatphobic.
And I think the thing for me is, I love the fact that Samira was the first person we reacted to, because she was saying, y'all better get better at critical thinking and analytical skills. You might take a minute, Samira, you might take a minute and you might look at your own movement and your own people, because this response, ooh, I hope you guys are ready for it.
Just saw Gabriella Lascano's newest video with New York Times, and we're going to talk about it. First and foremost, she has already been fat phobic. She put out this long drawn out statement a few years ago about how plus size people need to worry about their health, and just perpetuating to all the negative rhetoric that's surrounding plus size people in her video. But now she's made this new video talking about the same thing. But yes, it is fat phobic. Yes, she's peddling the same harmful rhetoric. But what really caught my attention was the end of the video. The end of the video talks about, not about anyone's health, not about anything like that. It talks about skinny talk. It talks about how you need to gaslight yourself into thinking food is optional, and how you need to do all these crazy things just to get yourself not to eat.
So according to this person, who clearly falls into the same line of rhetoric and the same movement as Samira and the others, not only is she saying Gabriella is fat phobic, what she took away from that entire video was that Gabriella is now endorsing skinny talk, and actually told people in the New York Times piece that they needed to gaslight themselves into not eating. I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't know how anyone watched that New York Times video and came out of it with that as Gabriella's point. And I want to laugh, but this is serious, because these are the people who are following this movement that is already toxic. And this is their level of critical thinking. They really think that Gabriella was endorsing skinny talk, when what she was saying is skinny talk exists, it's out there, but we shouldn't be following that either. That is just as unhealthy. And then she used that to say, but we also can't pretend that there aren't real risks that come with being obese and morbidly obese. But that was the point of including the bit about skinny talk. Like, I watched this and I was like, what weird game of telephone am I in? And it made me realize how rapidly these things can spiral and devolve based on people not understanding what Samira is calling out: basic critical thinking, basic analytical skills, and basic media literacy. The problem is, they have people like Samira saying, well, you guys are just idiots. You don't even understand what you're talking about. But they're not informing their audiences. How is it that this person who likely follows Samira came out with this, but we're the idiots? Like, I have a lot of questions. Anti-intellectualism is at an all-time high, and creators like Samira are just feeding right into that. And speaking of that, here, watch this one.
This message is for Gabriella Lascano and the New York Times. You're gonna want to sit down for this. My problem with the video isn't Gabriella's personal experience. My problem is that she got online and, without properly contextualizing the history and the nuances, she blamed body positivity. And all that has done is tell people waiting in the wings, it's all right, you guys, you can bully fat people again. Doctors, employers, you can discriminate against fat people. Shame them. You're justified now. The approach was incredibly irresponsible, and the result of this is going to be a lot of harm. Your video collapses medical neglect, personal health decisions, and a civil rights movement about dignity and access into one argument. What you're really responding to is not what body positivity started out as, but what it has become. And yes, that version is toxic, but it's not because of fat people.
Yeah, I just take a deep breath. I'm so sorry for the brain cells we all just lost together there, but are you freaking kidding me? Like, is this person... No, I'm not even going to ask if they're being for real, because clearly they're being for real in that video. They told us to sit, right? She was going to break us. We needed to sit down for what she was going to say. And I mean, I'm all the way seated and I'm still like, what is happening? I don't understand how the conclusion that this person got is that Gabriella greenlit the bullying of fat people. She told doctors, yep, it's 100% okay to go back to discriminating against your fat patients. I don't know how to tell y'all this, but Gabriella Lascano is still plus size. Like, am I out of my mind? Like, she's still plus size. She is still fat. She's still working on herself. Why would she greenlight that? Do you think that they hear themselves when they're saying these things? Like, I just can't with this nonsense. Gabriella is still plus size. In no way, shape, or form did this video greenlight bullying or discrimination against fat people. What it did is it called out the movement's toxicity and the way the movement has been telling people for years that there are no health conditions associated with their obesity. Was she not listening when Gabriella called out the fact that people shouldn't be afraid to work on their health? Was she not listening when Gabriella called out the fact that she recognizes there is discrimination in the medical field? But also, I had like a facepalm moment when she said, Gabriella's not responding to what body positivity was. She's responding to what it is now. Well, no, duh. She literally said that. Like, that's the core of Gabriella's argument. It's a well-intentioned movement that has become dangerous over time with the help of the internet and people who are radicalized. She's told you she's responding to what it's become. Like, I think this creator really thought she was doing something here by saying that. But again, Gabriella has fully admitted, I'm responding to what this movement has become, because it has become dangerous. I think, though, perhaps the most insane thing about nearly every single one of these responses is the way that they minimize Gabriella's personal experiences and her loss of her friends. Not a single one of them has talked about that, because they would rather focus on her audience thinking that Gabriella's dumb, that she doesn't understand the things she's talking about, that she's somehow being used by GLP-1 companies or skinny talk or diet culture. They're telling her she was too young to even know what body positivity truly was. And they've even gone as far as just saying, you don't even understand body positivity at all.
This is no hater shade to this creator. When she says that she's renouncing the body positivity movement, she doesn't have a clear understanding of what it is. Please know that I recognize my privileges. I reside in a straight size body, and I understand that I have no idea what it's like to receive all of the discrimination and fat shaming that she does.
Imagine your entire rebuttal to someone like Gabriella and her lived experience and her loss of her actual friends. Imagine that this is your rebuttal, telling her that she just didn't understand the movement, that she was clearly doing it wrong. And that last clip that I shared, that was Sammy over at Find Food Freedom. And I've struggled with nearly every response to Gabriella's video, but that one really got me. Like, I nearly spit my water out when she said, but listen, I understand my privilege. Do you? No, I really mean that. Do you? Because you had the audacity as a person who has said, my privilege of never having lived in a plus-size body. She had the audacity to tell someone who has been 400 pounds that they just didn't understand body positivity. That they just weren't trying hard enough. The thing I really struggle with Sammy and her takes that are like this is that she doesn't seem to understand that the same people who don't like Gabriella because this movement is radicalized, they also don't like Sammy. She is the thin, straight, white woman who's co-opted their movement. So, like, apparently she can't see that because she just keeps making content like that. But the same people who don't like Gabriella, they don't like Sammy either. And I don't understand why they can't see that. But the whole point here, and where I'm trying to get with this, is not a single person who made a response video to Gabriella has disproved her point. Not a single one of them has made a coherent counter-argument. Not a single one has brought forth research that disproves her. Not a single one has done an in-depth analysis about why the research she's presented is wrong. Not a single one of them has actually focused on the core of her argument or what she is actually saying. And that is that there are realities to being obese. It comes with medical and health and mental health complications that nobody wants to talk about. And in fact, this movement has gone out of its way to tell people that that statement is not true. They've gone out of their way to say that health conditions connected to weight, they're made up.
Oh my god, enough with the fat around the organs. That is not a real thing. It is made up.
They have gone out of their way to vilify and tear down any plus-size creator who is trying to lose weight or change their body for health reasons.
Guys, I am being bullied just for losing weight. I'm being held accountable for the harm that I'm causing in this community, that I, created and profited from or whatever. But that's not on me. Yeah, I'm using really fatphobic language about talking about my own weight loss and about what other people should be doing and telling them that skinny is actually better when I told them the opposite for years. But why do they trust me? It's not like I told them that they could wait. I did say they could trust me. Oh, that's not the point. The point is I'm skinny now and I should not have to pretend to care about fat girls' feelings anymore, especially since I am trying to get that big pharma bag and that thin privilege. I want it all and I want no discomfort. So if you call me out or make me feel even the slightest bit uncomfortable, you are bullying me. Just so you know that. I'm the real victim here.
This movement and its leadership have produced people who denounce the word healthy.
There are a few words that I don't allow when somebody comes into my house, and healthy is one of them.
Who told other women their problems didn't matter.
Hello there, everybody. This is just a friendly reminder, again, because some people are so incompetent that they will not listen to marginalized bodies, but then we'll just talk over them. So let me just reiterate this. The body positive movement is not about your insecurities that are rooted in fat phobia. The movement is about fighting systemic oppression and systemic fat phobia and systemic ableism. It's not about your bloated stomach. It's not about your stretch marks. It's not about your insecurities that are rooted in fat phobia. So get off your high horse and listen to marginalized bodies when we tell you that you've co-opted the movement that was never meant for you. So if you're not on my page to listen and learn, then get the out of here, because I don't want to hear about your thin tears. If you want a movement to help you with your insecurities, then go find 10 of the other movements that exist for it. Stop co-opting one for marginalized bodies. Thank you.
Who vilified doctors.
We just got your lab work back, and you might want to sit down for this one. I have something to share with you. Okay, what is it, Doc? You have obesity. Excuse me? Are you trying to say that the size of my body is a disease? Precisely. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Who told them that fat people don't need to be weighed?
I call this play How to Ask Your Doctor Not to Weigh You, narrated by me, William Hornby.
Who told fat people that they should go out and get their fear foods?
I want to know from you, what is one food that you forbid yourself to eat and that actually scares you to keep inside your house? I want to challenge you to go get that food this week. Take yourself out on a solo date or with a friend and go try your forbidden fear food.
Yeah, these are the people who are trying to prove Gabriella wrong. And in the end, not a single one of them have. In fact, if anything, they fed directly into her points. By responding to Gabriella's call for nuance in conversations about how radicalized this movement has become, with insults, intellectual posturing, and blatant revisionist history, they are proving how defensive and how radicalized this sphere has become. For the last 3 years, Gabriella's only crime, which is a crime similar to my own here on this channel, was holding a mirror up in hopes that this movement would reflect, because they desperately need to. And instead of reflecting, they did what they have always done. They plugged their ears, shoved their head in the sand, shouted down the messenger, because they will do anything but have a real conversation. All right, that is all I have for you all today. And at this point, I am genuinely curious to know what you think about all of this. Did you remember Gabriella from her previous video, which again was 3 years ago at this point? That's crazy to think about. It feels like it was yesterday. Do you remember that? Do you remember her original points and her getting so much backlash that she had to take the video down? Were you surprised to see her doubling down on this now on an even larger platform? Is this conversation still as relevant as it was before? Clearly, I would argue yes, but I'm curious what you think. What do you think about all of these rebuttals to her argument? Do you think that she lacked nuance? Do you think she's simply fatphobic? Do you think she has zero understanding of what the body positivity movement was? Does she not understand what it is now? Is she not the right person to bring this message forward? Do you think that she greenlit people bullying fat people? Do you think she told doctors it was okay for them to discriminate against their fat patients? Why do you think this movement is so incapable of reflecting? I am genuinely curious to know what you think about all of this, so I hope you will leave your opinions for me in the comment section down below. And for all my internet friends out there who may not feel comfortable leaving your opinions in an internet comment section, I see you. Go ahead this week and leave me a mirror emoji, because collectively, we are going to stand with Gabriella the same way we have been on this channel since its start, and we are going to keep holding up that mirror until people in this movement start to truly reflect on that radicalization and on the way that their messaging is incredibly dangerous, not only to themselves, but also to their audiences. As always, thank you all so much for being here with me this week. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.